All right, good morning. Discussion, it's Wednesday, and normally on Wednesdays, some people call it Women Crush Wednesdays. Yes, and it is in times of business. So today our topic of discussion is focusing on women in business and how Ugandan women can position themselves for regional trade. And if you mentioned about regional trade, I believe this is the East African community and also looking at the African continent as well. And joining me on set this morning, I have Nyabhara Julian, who is Edie. Have I got the name right? Yes. Yes. All right. You're most welcome. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning. How are you?
Yes. The viewers out there would want to know who is Nyabhara Julian.
My name is Nyabhara Julian. Thank you so much for hosting me this morning. And I'm the Executive Director of Uganda Women in Trade and Manufacturing.
Okay. All right. Ugandan Women in Trade and Manufacturing.
Yes.
Speaking of Ugandan Women in Trade and Manufacturing, how have the women been performing, for example, during the COVID-19? Because speaking of trade and manufacturing, I believe most of the Ugandan women are in trade.
Yes. Most Ugandan women are in trade, but after COVID, women looked for survival skills.
Okay.
So in trying to get the survival skills, they started going into small cottage industries, starting small cottage industries, starting small kitchen factories, whereby they could add value to different products. And they've actually, I think, come out very successful. We realize the number of women who are in value addition now, the number has almost tripled of the women who are in value addition,
okay.
those small scale, and that has helped them to survive through the COVID period. And we realize now, according to the statistics and the membership that we have, I think, almost 40% who went into value addition. People who are, women who are in trade and have now converted into, or who had jobs and have now gone into value addition. So I think as women, we are not doing so bad. We are not doing so bad because we found a way to survive in the hard times.
In the hard times.
Yes.
And I believe there is also this mindset that women are only known to be, for example, housewives, and this is actually changing.
Yes.
And I think it only went back during COVID. That is why I started with COVID. How did the women survive during COVID this time?
Yes.
Now, let's also look at the local perspective of women, especially the women in the small enterprises, those who are under the small enterprises. How are they performing? Because I believe they also play a big part of the women that form up the trade, and also the small manufacturing they do somehow.
Yes. The women generally are not doing bad, because if you realize most of the women who are doing businesses in the CBD are moved out to the suburbs. Trying to look for cheaper places to rent, tried to get places that were a bit nearer to their homes to avoid the inconvenience of driving to town. So I think as women generally, COVID turned out in a positive way on the business side of it. And if you realize that there is even a very high increase of women who are registering their businesses, who are formalizing their businesses, who are standardizing their businesses, and who are even paying taxes. We've had a recent interaction with URA, and they're impressed with the way women are doing.
Yeah, they are. And I keep telling people here is that every time I'm discussing business, men in business, I ask the men, why is it hard for the men doing business to comply to the taxes available? They find it difficult to remit these taxes, but surprisingly to the women, they're more compliant, and I think this has actually led to the striving of businesses that are driven by the women. Now, let's also look at leadership roles of women, especially in the business world in Uganda today. How has this shaped the sector for the other aspiring women entrepreneurs?
In the business sector, leadership for women is not that out there.
Okay.
You can notice that in the business sector, there are not many voices of women speaking for women or speaking, in the general business terms. We do not have so many women, and this is a core actually to women. We need more women. We need more women to speak. We need more women in parliament to speak for businesses, for the business community. I've actually not had women parliamentarians speak for the business community, apart from the trade committee, which I think also the percentage of women is very small. I'm not so certain about the statistics, the percentages, but I don't think as far as business is concerned, there are a few voices that are speaking for the business community. And women have a big part they are playing. So I wish we would have so many women.
But where do you think is the challenge as to why you're very few in that space?
I think as a businesswoman, we tend to focus, as women, we tend to focus on what we are doing, and we do not want. So when we get into the business space, we find it hard to start diverting into the leadership roles. So we tend to concentrate more on our businesses, and we do not want to play in the spaces that we do not understand. And I think somehow it is affecting the business community, because the more we speak, the more things get done.
Okay.
Yes.
And indeed, the more you speak, people get to know what are the challenges that you are facing, and in that way, the government can as well come in and help you understand more. We're in the new financial year, and inflationary pressures are hitting hard. 7.9 now, according to the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, and the Bank of Uganda details have revealed that we already hit 7.9, up from the 6.8% of the month of June, the month of July rather, because we're already in August. Now, women, let me just hit into the challenges that women are facing. What are those challenges? Before we actually hit to the across-border side, I would want to first of all start from the local scene here. How are the women surviving? Mainly, what are these challenges that they are dealing with, especially those in business? Oh,
the main challenges women are the usual business challenges, like every other person is going through. But for women, it hits us harder because we are a bit limited by culture in so many ways. The way we run our businesses is not the way man runs their business.
Yes.
We are limited in time. How long can you be outside running a business? When can you report to work? At what time are you supposed to go back home?
Yes.
All those affect the running of the business. We don't run the same way as men run their businesses. If I'm expected to be at work, I'm expected to make sure that I'm at my business maybe by 8 when I've taken care of my home. Then I have to ensure I close earlier.
You get back home to see what has been happening.
To ensure that my family is prepared. So the way we run businesses is not the same. So the most main thing that affects the business women is culture.
Okay.
The myth around culture. What is a woman supposed to do? What is a woman? If I'm meeting a client, let's say at 8 in the night, it's almost difficult, very difficult for my family to come to terms that I have to be in a meeting at 8 in the night. I have to be in a meeting, a business meeting at that time. So
it's going to pose a lot of questions.
That's a lot of not yet. Our economy is not yet used to that. Our community is not yet used to that.
Yes.
So besides that, then we have the usual challenges, which is the financial support that we don't get enough. When we want to get, let's say, loans from the bank, it's very hard to access properties for Corato. If we want to acquire a loan, so many people will ask questions: who will pay for you, who will support you, who will guarantee you, who will stand for you. Then your husband may be very uncomfortable supporting you to get a loan because they think probably you'll not pay it. Then if you need a big loan, you need Corato. And probably you don't have a land title in your names. The property is in the family names or the husband's names. The other challenges are the government. I think also the government is not it's not doing enough. It has done something, but for the women, the business women, I don't think it has done enough.
Okay.
As far as, let's say, apportioning the gender the gender voice, for example, in investments.
Okay, to create also opportunities for the women.
For the equal opportunities for women. For
Yeah.
example, if we are talking about investments in land, in the industrial parks, how many women have been able to access? Like, do we have a gender, the gender space there? Like we say, there is a certain percentage allocated to women in the industrial parks. Do we have, let's say, banks when they are giving out loans? Is there something that is special for women? So I think as women, we are not getting enough support from government as far as the business running and the economy is concerned.
Okay. Let's also speak about the issue of capital. Do women easily get capital to expand their businesses? Because initial capital, startup capital may come in any ways, but how about the issue of expanding businesses? Because mainly, most of the women in business are yet to expand, but they are still having more especially small businesses, and maybe some of those are telling the medium-sized. But the issue of capital, how isn't that a huge challenge for the women?
In most cases, when most of the women, I think 95% of the women who start businesses are either supported by family,
Okay.
either a husband, a father, an uncle, a brother, a sister, or a family coming together and supporting one. Most of the women, that's how they get their capital. There are few women who do savings. There are some who do savings and plan to plunge either from a workplace, a work environment, and then go to start business.
Okay.
But the expansion part of it, that's why we realize that women's businesses don't grow as much.
Okay.
They reach a certain level and stagnate. So long as it can sustain, it is bringing in some money.
True.
I think women feel a bit comfortable.
When you're making some money and the business is there.
And the business is stagnates there.
Okay.
We don't look at growth. We don't look at the expansion. Why? Probably because we are unable to acquire that capital. And then women are not risk takers.
Okay.
If I'm running a business as a woman, it will be very complicated for me to think of either acquiring a loan of, let's say, 1 billion to expand my business, either to grow an industry or to start a factory, because I need to stake either my family property. So I'll be like, I cannot put my family property in the bank to get a loan. So women are not risk takers.
Okay.
So that has stagnated our businesses, and we find it hard to even get out there and acquire bigger capital to grow our businesses, to expand our businesses. So women tend to get comfortable. So long as a business can bring in some money, it can sustain you, it can support you in one way or another, we tend to be comfortable from there. Okay. So that's why you see there are no large businesses for women. There are few. Those that are there, they are really very few.
Now, I think also that explains the reason as to why it is rare to find them collapsing. Because women businesses rarely collapse.
I think so, because we love to play safe.
You want to stay there.
Play safe. So I probably will employ the people I think that I can manage, even where I think that I'm not yet able to employ enough, then I will do most of the work for myself, or I'll bring in family. Then let's say when it comes to loans, we are not so savvy about loans. We don't really rush for loans that much. If you see, it's on extreme ends that you see women going for loans. So I think that's why our businesses tend to stay stable, but not grow. Okay. Yes.
All right. And I think you can still take that as a tip if you're a viewer here. Sometimes you get to realize the easier way. If you're making some money and the business is still able to stand, you can continue driving business in that way. So I think that's exactly what we're having in here at our topic of discussion. Well, if you're just joining in, we are discussing women in business, pretty much just a brief of what is happening from Uganda, but our main focus is entirely on how women can position themselves for regional trade. Now, let's get it there now, Madam. When you look at the region of East Africa, it is steadily growing, and businesses are recovering, economies are still recovering as well. how can the women in Uganda position themselves for that space? How can they target the East African community?
Thank you for that question. Women in the East African bloc.
Yes.
First, the East African integration, when it started,
okay,
it started on 4 pillars. And those 4 pillars were the customs union, the markets, the common markets, the political federation, and then the monetary union.
Okay.
So since 2006, there has been, they've at least worked on the 2, the customs union and then the common markets. You realize that in one way or another, these 2 have been pushed to some level. So these 2 have helped trade. They have assisted trade to some extent. For example, the customs union has helped to ensure that taxes for products that are made in the East African region are not taxable.
Okay.
And then the common markets, that's why they are trying to say that products that are from the East African market can freely move across borders. So to some extent, they have tried to help in the trade area. Then the monetary union is something that the East African heads of state had agreed that in the 10 years, that is by 2023, that will be next year,
yes,
at least it should be taking shape. It should be starting, whereby all of us can use the same currency. But I do not know, with the different political changes that are happening, getting the different political leaders.
The current first deputy prime minister,
yes,
who is also the East African Community Affairs Minister,
yes,
Right Honorable Ali Twala Kadaga, says 2024. Hopefully that will work.
Originally it was 23, that's what they had agreed on, because they had given it 10 years, and those 10 years are lapsing 2023.
Yeah, I think they got to realize
so,
it.
But I do not, that's what I was saying, with the change of different presidents, because every president comes with their own way of thinking and doing things. So I do not know whether that will materialize and whether they will follow it up to ensure that it's implemented by 2023. And then the political federation, that's something that is being worked on. But then I think for us our focus is the 3. So how are the women strategizing to ensure that they benefit from this?
Okay.
We are working with women to ensure that we are able to access these markets.
Okay.
The East African region started with around 3 states. Now we are 6. That is a population of around 177 people, 177 million people. That's a huge market for us as women. So we are trying to ensure that we work on standards of our products, and such that when these markets are ready for us, we are also ready to penetrate these markets.
Okay.
We are having a huge infrastructure development that is being worked on. So as women, we need to ensure that as soon as all this is ready, we are ready to penetrate these markets. We are ready to ensure our products get into these markets. And we are also working on formalization of our businesses, such that if we are to provide services in the East African region, if we are to provide services, or if we are to provide goods, we are ready. That is what basically we are working on. But though we are finding a little bit of challenges, we have non-tariff barriers. Non-tariff barriers, those are things like corruption, confiscation of goods, threats whereby you, then travel issues, whereby you find you cannot take a certain amount of goods through the border, the cross-border trade. So we are still finding issues with non-tariff barriers. But then, we are also encouraging women through these associations. We are preparing them, because information is key. Information is key.
Very true.
The one thing that has dragged women behind is lack of information.
They know nothing about what is happening in the field.
They do not know what is happening in the economy. They do not know what is happening. When you talk about the East African common market, they do not understand what it is. They do not even, most women actually do not even understand that you can get your goods and cross them to Kenya and export them and sell.
Most of them, their mind is driven around Uganda.
It is inside. We are doing our things inside, and women need information. So platforms like this are welcomed, and we are very grateful for them. Yes. Because they are able to disseminate information that would otherwise not be accessible or even got to. Okay. So we are thinking that as government, there are a few things that government should work on. How do we ensure that information gets out there to even the lowest person? We've had in a new president of Kenya. Yes. We do not know what direction it's going to take, but so far he's the new president, and we hope that he's able to fast track some of these protocols that they talk about every day. Yes. Okay.
And region. Now, the African Continental Free Trade Area also positions every trader in Africa in a situation where we can all tap into the opportunities on the continent. How can the women as well utilize that space on the continent besides the East African community? Because we all know the East African community can be, because we are neighbors already. Now, when you look at the African continent, I believe we have some women who have already crossed the borders, but are having some challenges. Now, what is the best way for them to tap into the other wider markets on the continent?
I think the best way, like I've said, is let's prepare. How prepared are we? Okay. For example, standards. We need to know that our products need to meet certain standards to get into these markets. So as women, we are working with our members, our member women who subscribe to associations to ensure that they prepare themselves as far as standards are concerned, because I understand they are working now on East African standards of products, not the different standards organizations like UNBS, the Kenya Bureau of Standards. They've decided to sit together and work on certain standards, the East African standards. So we are calling on women to ensure that we meet these standards, formalize our businesses, prepare for these markets. And then the East African free trade, is it the African free trade market?
African Continental Free Trade Area.
Continental Free Trade Market area should be able to disseminate information like I've said. Yes. How many people know what we are supposed to do in this whole process? Okay. And how do we ensure that this information gets to these business women? And how do we get to know if I want to export my goods, let's say to Zambia, if I want to send my goods South Africa, how do I know the requirements? How do I know what I'm supposed to do? How do I know the processes where I'm supposed to start from? So all that prepares. We need to prepare even the next generation of women to be able to find. For us, we are almost at this. We are starting most of these things. We are the ones at the starting level. But how are we preparing the next generation of women, business women, to ensure that they find all this is done? They know they could produce a product. If she's a woman manufacturer and she's producing, let's say, beauty cosmetic products, is she producing from the start, well aware that she could send her product to South Africa? Is she producing knowing that there is already market in Zambia, there is already market in Congo? That's the generation, that's what we are supposed. We need to make it a generational information flow. such that we don't concentrate only on ourselves, but we target even the young, the youth, and ensure this information such that the girls who are now, let's say, in primary school, who are in secondary school, they grow when they are aware of this information. We actually need to take these topics into schools. Make everybody aware of these opportunities. There are people who do not know that you can cross from Rwanda, from here to Rwanda. There are people who do not know that you can easily cross from here and go to South Africa with even a bus. Some people are not aware of that.
All right.
So.
And we're coming back after the break with more discussions of women in business. And tell you, we can look at more of those. And then after the break, we shall as well look at the achievements of the women in business, how they've been able to execute their duties in the past, and what are the prospects for those in business. Good morning, stick around.